for recording the meeting. Daniel Oduntan is an interdisciplinary media artist occupying the spaces between visual art, sound, and performance media. The core of his work is asking questions of his spatial reality, which encompasses not only the built environment, but also the multisensory. Daniel's practice is idea first, medium second, which allows him to create in a style described as explorative participation design, a method of research and speculation to build inclusive futures. Daniel has worked with the Bartlett School of Architecture, Warp Records, and the Design Museum. So that's Daniel, our brilliant facilitator. Next up, we have the wonderful Yaa Adae. Yaa Adae is a writer, researcher, and participatory curator, currently thinking a lot about structural barriers to love through Open Heart Clinic, a community research incubator for imagining future care infrastructure. Their work has been published in Frieze, Natal, Bitched Media, Everything Passes Except the Past, and more. Previously, Yaa studied the art futurist study AKRA, A-K-R-A, which housed Decolonize the Art World, an alternative art history platform, and the Imaginarium, a rhizomatic virtual residency program for Ghanaian new media artists. Then we have David Sonubi. David studied design at Central School of Speech and Drama, started working in A&R in 2016 as a scout, working up to an executive level. He's the co-founder of High Roller, the home of Recess, No Signal, and Black in the Day. He loves playing chess, collecting vinyls, and anything that has matcha. That's a great trio of things to love right there. And last though, I'm going to introduce the wonderful G-Man. With over 4.5 decades of broadcasting experience, the G-Man can honestly say those famous words, been there, seen that, done that, having started radio broadcasting in his mid-teens under the mentorship of then BBC Radio WM broadcaster Des Mitchell. G-Man gradually became a broadcaster with his own right, quickly earning popularity across the West Midlands region. The period with Radio WM lasted for many great years. In the following years, the G-Man's path took him through several local radio stations until he found home with one of the pioneers of community radio, New Style Radio, based in Birmingham. He took the post of breakfast presenter, delivering the breakfast show 5 days a week, every weekday morning from 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. This position won him local, national, and international acclaim. Having delivered stellar interviews with many of the world's superstars, he quickly became the go-to guy for breaking exclusives live on air. Fast forward to the present, and you can listen to the G-Man live on air every Friday from 5 p.m. till 7 p.m, delivering the same high-quality broadcast the world has known him for. So we are clearly in the presence of greats, and yeah, we're honestly so happy to have you here today, and I'm going to hand over to you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that incredible introduction, Grace. It's amazing. I would like to thank MAIA for just even organizing this. The work that goes into these moments is immense, and it's a lot of behind the scenes work from the team that a lot of people don't get to see. So I just want to make sure that, yeah, gratitude is flowing here. But yeah, I'm amongst like a really amazing array of minds today and tonight. And I just want to kind of, you know, through this discussion and through the next 2 hours or so we have, it is a way for us to kind of R&D and explore the idea of the radio and the broadcast and what that means to a community that for so long, you know, hasn't been necessarily thought of when it comes to designing new innovation technology, or, you know, putting what's the word, hospitality at the forefront. This whole lab and this whole fellowship came about from the idea of responding to hospitality, the idea of a possible workspace or hotel that incorporates the Black community and helps them to kind of like cultivate memories and culture. And so through that, I started to explore the idea of like, what does that look like? You know, for me, what does that look like in terms of the living room space? How does that kind of come about? And I started to think about It's frequencies that enter spaces, the frequencies that we invite into spaces, the living room space as like this last place of like Black kind of like cultivation. Nowadays, everyone's in their own worlds and their own kind of like universes, worlds within worlds. But the living room space was like the last space for, you know, genuine family orientated or just like community orientated, a broadcast signal that you'd all tune into and you'd all listen to. So, you know, I kind of wanted to kind of explore that through my labs, the lab sessions, which I'm kind of been working on. The first one is a talk, second one is an actual workshop in terms of like how to kind of make frequencies, how to design frequencies in your living room. We're going to be using lots of plants, so it's not what you think. So it'll be sign up for that one because that's going to be really interesting. And then the third one will be a community broadcast where we'll have an array of people again, and we'll be exploring the idea of live broadcasting in some type of audio visual installation. So I kind of wanted to start with just this idea of all of our first iterations or our like first introductions into sound, into Black media especially, and just kind of go around and ask everyone what was their first memories of like Black media, whether it be sound, video, something you watch on TV, cinema, whatever it is. What's your first living memory of Black media? I'll start with Yaa. I'm gonna go into that.
My first introduction, or first thing that comes to mind when you say that was the movie Honey if you remember it. And I guess why that came, because I rewatched it recently, and I mean, I think it's kind of funny looking back now and knowing that like Jessica Alba is not Black, but was playing one in the movie. But just like, I guess being like being young and spending a lot of time in front of the TV, and like my entry point into the world was like film, and just like TV more broadly, and that's kind of what got me into storytelling at large, was like that kind of media. But yeah, so when you said that, I just immediately thought of that time.
Amazing. David?
For me, it would actually be Nollywood, you know. I actually just remember like being a kid and watching, like, well, not watching, my parents would be watching it. And then I just remember it just being so scary. And then it just kind of put me up of like home, you know, where I come from, because the films was just, well, the specific films they were watching was just always scary. So I just remember Nollywood was like the first time when it came to like Black media, especially in film, just seeing Black people, well, my like Nigerian people. And it was just like, yeah, I think Nollywood was like my first time.
Amazing. G-Man?
Well, my first experience in Black media was, hopefully some of you may remember, not when TV only had two colors. It was black and white. And I grew up on a diet of Sidney Poitier, music by Harry Belafonte. And it was an anomaly back in the late 60s, early 70s to see a person of color on any platform, much less. And it was like a celebration of a Black family when you saw that. You know, you could be cooking, you could be doing your homework, you'd hear, excuse my French, quick, come look, Black people on the TV. And we'd come running in, call your friends, look, it's one of us. And then we'd sit down and gather around. We didn't know what they were saying, we just do this. So for us, it was like, it was a blessing to have access to that platform back in the day. You know, even though it was only by a small amount, you know, as a small child, sorry for talking so long, but as a small child, we were subject to a show was called the Black and White Minstrel Show. And as a child, we never even knew there weren't Black people because we didn't understand TV. Yeah. So we were subjected to a lot of imagery that we were allowed on media, we were allowed on TV, we were allowed in front of the screen, should say, yeah, but it was in a limited proportion. So growing up, we celebrated every minute facet we had on TV. Back in the day, there wasn't Black radio. But I mean, that's for another point during this show. But just to, as a segue, we were, as a person heading towards that number up there, right? It was a very small amount we were subjected to, and we had to satisfy with that. Yeah. Our diet was a teaspoon of black media, but we were still happy with it. Yeah. We had a culture, every mickle makes a muckle. So even though we had a very small amount of media on TV, not even on radio at the time when I was a child, it was glorious. So my first memories are, it was a glory to see a person of color on the 2-color TV screen with only 2 channels. And that's where I've grown up. So now you can guess my age.
No, it's what I find really interesting about, is most of all of us, all of these things happened in the living room. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's that whole thing again of the living room space. No one ever actually lives in the living room no more. Everyone's kind of like, if there's a family of 4 or 5, they're all in their little rooms, all their phones and stuff. And it's interesting, that the living room is the thing that connects us here in our first introduction into Black media, seeing ourselves, in this world. And the living room it's so fascinating. I find it fascinating that the living room is the space where we're introduced to ourselves as a mirror. We're introduced to our, those that look like us, and whether it's whatever degrees of like separation it is, like someone that looks like you, and you kind of gravitate towards that. I wanted to share like a collage image that I made like years ago that kind of, for me, it's kind of sums up a little bit of this talk, and it was a project I made called Lo-Fi Odysseys, and it's this idea of like creating archival stories out of like legacy equipment. And I did this whole radio kind of like documentary mixtapes, and it was about digging my heritage and digging my past. That's actually me, but it's like, it's this whole idea of the living room being this ship, this receiver where you would receive all of these signals directly into your room, into your house. These sounds and voices. I used to hug up that sound system, and I used to think like, what is happening? How is this working? How are these people's voices coming out of the speaker? And being fascinated by radio and tapes and all sorts of. I guess that was my beginning stages, but it's like all of these like different types of media that was coming at me, visual, audio, and as I'm kind of like as I've been doing research into this whole idea of returning to Black frequencies, it dawned on me that because we've now switched off, I don't know how people are familiar with the digital and the audio, the analog signaling, and maybe G-Man can chime in here with me. But what would happen is that you would have a show or station, whether it be pirate, whether it be a professional broadcast station, and they would basically transmit a frequency that they would, that frequency would be wrapped in, that audio would be basically wrapped into that frequency, and or visual or television signal, and then that's emitted through a tower, through whether it's an antenna on top of a building, or a professional satellite dish or what have you, that then transmits out into not only to the terrestrial, which is a space around us, but outer space. But the idea is that it gets picked up on Earth. It gets picked up in with your antenna, with your satellite provider, or your antenna on top of your building block or whatever. But it's that those signals are still traveling. Those signals that were broadcast, all those shows, all those TV, as a human race, 50 years we've been broadcasting, but the technology's there. Those signals and those shows are still transmitting and still traveling into space. And the idea is that, we're communicating, we're putting our best foot forward, not only on a terrestrial level, but also on this hyperdimensional level. These frequencies and these shows of who we are still traveling, and whatever species or whatever race can pick that up will pick it up. But it's just fascinating to me that these are eternal, and kind of, when we talk about archives and how to preserve archives, the fact that it's wrapped in a frequency and it's still traveling, and it could still be kind of received and listened to in a way, if the technology is there on the other end. It fascinates me, and something which I'm trying to explore more in my work. So I wanted to kind of like, that was my radicalization into what I do now, possibly, maybe. And I kind of wanted to ask everyone, why is it they do what they do? Like, why you know, start with David in terms of, you know, the no signal idea. You know, why are you into, what is it that draws you to media? What is it that draws you to radio right now?
Yeah, it can go as deep depending how deep you want to go.
You can
But
sum it, I mean, you can sum it up in a way that, you know, maybe there's one thing, because I kind of want to ask everyone else's, but we can chime in and stuff. But there must be like a pool. You said that you know, the Nollywood idea, Nollywood was like an introduction to seeing people like yourself. But in terms of like what you do with the culture right now, is there like one thing that draws you to it? That keeps you
yeah,
going?
I think the main thing that draws me to like radio, or just however you want to see it today, radio, or just putting frequencies out there, whether it's visual or audio frequencies. The thing that attracts me the most to it is the fact that like I'm able to work with people that are like from my background and from my culture, the Black culture. Because I just remember growing up, like from a young age, like my dad was like obsessed with like Yaa Adae and Barry White, and he had so many records of Yaa Adae and Barry White records when I was younger. And he had like a hi-fi system, and like my brother and I would like go behind the hi-fi system and we'd pretend to DJ, and like we would just pretend to DJ and pretend to like talk, and like, but we're not saying anything, but we feel like we are saying stuff, you know what I mean? We're just playing about. And it's not the fact that we had one uncle that was a DJ, that was my mum's friend. My mum used to throw parties as well. He used to give us mixes when we was younger as well, CDs to listen back every time we see him, he'll give us a new mix. So from young, we've always kind of like, there's always been like little things that happen that we just have naturally grew interest in stuff like that. And then when it got to a point where we had the opportunity and we had the platform, we was like, yo, we have no clue how to do this, but we do know that we don't like what we hear on radio. She was like, okay, cool. So, but we have the opportunity to change that, because if we just found a way that we can do it from our homes, and that was in 2020, she was like, right, cool, we can do it from our homes. We can put our friends on, people that have never even done producing in their lives. Yo, do you want to become a producer? People that have never done programming in their life. Yo, do you want to become a programmer? And it was just, at first, even now, but at first it was literally just so much fun just seeing that me and my friends and other people that we just really enjoyed their style of music, or their taste of music, shall I say, and just being able to give them a platform. That's the best part for me. It's like, yo, being able to work with my friends, just people from my culture, from my background.
Yaa Adae, how would you kind of describe your love for, I guess, from a design, because I mean, you're a participation curator, is that correct? Participatory curator, and someone who's a community researcher. So, you know, that's dealing with people, and there are themes with media and Black media. There's like what's the kind of, this thing you talk about, love economics also, you know, these ideas of like providing a service, or not service, providing care for a community that possibly has not kind of had that care put on them. Is similar to kind of like providing, I feel like, tuning into radio and not realizing there's nothing there for you to listen to and having to create your own thing. There are similarities there I kind of like want to pull out, but it's just, is there something particularly interesting to you that, I don't know, you kind of gravitate towards, that keeps you interested?
Yeah, I mean, what preceded my work with Open Heart Clinic and directly, I guess, dealing with a love or trying to hold spaces for people to reflect on that was an interest in technology, but technology more broadly, one of being sound, but also, and also love. And within that, so like David was talking about starting No Signal to see like work with more Black people and work with more people that look like him and that look like us. And I guess as I was reflecting on coming from like a design background, which was more like spatial, then like thinking of design more broadly in terms of like the way the world around us is made, the way that the internet looks like, and why it is the foundations of it. I came across the work of an artist called Tabitha Rezae, who talks a lot about like the World Wide West. Was WWW, and I at the time was living in Ghana and reflecting on why my internet was so slow, and that's where I started like doing research on that and be like, oh, this is an infrastructural issue because of like how cables are set up, and you know, we talk about like the world us being like the most hyper connected time ever, but you see that only applies to certain people, and also that can be like denied, like now, for example, like in Gaza with internet cables being cut down. And so when I think about like media, I guess I think about it from like an infrastructural standpoint in that way, and how like certain people are meant to be like platformed, whereas like others are not, and like what like alternative communication strategies, like leaning on I guess like indigenous understandings of technology more broadly, like what that can make way for. So that as what I would say was like my like reasoning was like going on that journey from design into this question.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna get to you because I'm very interested in your introduction into pirate radio, but also media in general. But I want to share a clip with everyone. So G-Man was one of the founding presenters, DJs, members, resident of a station in Birmingham, PCRL, People Community Radio Link. I got it right. I want to share this link with the founder, actually, talking about the beginning stages of it and why it was set up in a way. So quick, bear with me. Let's watch this.
So you flick on your radio for some music. You're in Birmingham. What's the choice? There's National Radio 1, then there's Radio WM and BRMB, both local and legal. But if none of these is to your taste, there is an alternative. You can tune in to the People's Community Radio Link. So why did you start PCRL?
I realized there was a great need for more communication for the Afro-Caribbean people in this country and Asians. We tried to get other media such as the BBC and the independent station to cater more for this group of people. They had no interest, and we decided if someone wasn't going to do it, then we'll have to do it ourselves.
Now you say that you don't want to be seen as pirates because you don't steal anything from anybody. I mean, but as a free station or whatever, presumably you don't...
Yeah, we prefer to be called a free radio station.
You don't pay, copyright to people whose records you play, I do.
That's right, but you cannot pay copyrights unless you become a legal entity. We would be very keen to be legalized yesterday.
How is the station financed at the moment? I mean, how does it work in a business way?
At the present moment, we do advertise. The station is very popular. A lot of people are now advertising with the station, but before we were getting advertisement, we promoted shows, and we had get a small amount of donations, but most of our finance come from the shows we promoted.
Do you get troubled by raids and things?
Yes, we had 94 raids totally, and lost of over £100,000 worth of equipment. Now we could be even offering a better service if we were a legal station. And all the problems and headache we have and worrying about broadcasting. Sometimes we're broadcasting the door knocked or a bit of noise, and we're a bit concerned whether it's a raid occurring. And now we're free enough to be doing our job the way we would like to. We will be operating much easier and possibly even offering a better service than we are at the present moment, which is next to none.
Sound of your station, Radio PCRL.
Party people in the place. Yo, I'm here to say that my DJ is going all the way. DJ man. DJ.
One of the things I've been listening, I've been kind of in this today, even just going through the archives of PCRL, and one thing that struck me is how professional the station is, and how like the clips that I found, they're so professional. Like in terms of, we wouldn't even think it was. I don't know, people got this idea of a pirate radio station being something really dodgy and just random and kind of freestyle, which is, those exist. Well, PCRL was different. And I just wanted to ask, like, G-Man, what was your why pirate radio? What led you into it? How'd you get involved in it?
It goes back to I think just touch on the subject matter that David and Yaa spoke about, what touched their souls to get them involved in it. Music as a whole has what? Harmonics. Yeah? Harmonics resonate between certain frequencies, an upper and lower band, and those frequencies have an effect on the human psyche, our body, and our mentality. Now, as a young child, I always questioned my dad, why does this song make me feel a certain way? And this was at 8 years old. Why does that song make me feel a certain way? And it's all down to harmonics. So as I grew older, I had a liking to classical music, then blue beat, then ska. And my father taught me to listen to everything, because music doesn't have a color, it has a sound to be enjoyed by everybody in all walks of life. There isn't such a thing as black music. It's music. White music, it's music. The curators of that will be the people of color. You can't class sound. It's something you hear. Yeah? So when we started producing music, I thought, you know what? I have to get involved in this. So I followed my dad to certain venues, went to blues, went to parties, and I just got into music. My mom, God rest her soul, when she was 9 months pregnant, she was still at the parties. Don't call the NHS. And she said the only thing would settle me in her stomach was if she stood by a speaker box. And that's when I understood how harmonics resonated with myself. So as I got older, I thought, wow, if music has this effect on me, what effect will it have on the masses? And how can I push that out there? I want to get involved. This is at a very young age. So I thought, you know what? I've got to get involved in a sound system. I want to start playing music to the max. So you can also look at it like a preacher in the church. Yeah. The sermon was the music. Yeah. But how you delivered it and the tone, the lyrical content, the bass, the treble, everything had an effect on it. So the medium grew and grew and grew and grew. So if I fast forward now, at 16 years old, I came across a party in the Hummingbird where they had a DJ called Des Mitchell, and he was playing. And I was amazed at how he could control a crowd of 300 just with round bits of plastic. He could make them cheer, smile, scream, just by round bits of plastic going around. And I was amazed. I thought, wowee. And I watched him with eagle eyes. Then he said to me at 6 years old, he goes, "You've been watching me all night." I go, "Of course I have." He goes, "I'm going to go to the toilet. Can you carry on for me?" I goes, "I've never done it before." I thought, oh gosh. So I jumped on and I remembered by memory what he did, putting the needle on this little black bit of plastic and it going like that. So I put it on and it was a song by, I tell you what it was, Teddy Pendergrass. And I put it on and the crowd went mental. And Des came back and he stood at the door and left me there for 20 minutes. And he said, "You're a natural. Can you do the same thing again at the BBC with me?" And after that, I was taken on by the BBC for several years. I know my story goes on, but it's going somewhere. Daniel, am I right, Daniel? Yeah, right? So I went to the BBC and I thought, wow, it's that medium again where you can preach to the world with your music. So from the BBC, where I was a broadcaster, I left the BBC and then went to pirate radio. My journey was that way. So at that time, Rising Star radio station was the only one in Birmingham. Rising Star then transitioned to PCRL. That is when I joined with Kenny B, Crazy G, Pilot, etc., etc. So I still wanted to hone my craft further. And as Cecil said in that clip, they made their funds by events. They were not funded by nobody. The community said, I've got a hairdressing shop, have some money to play my advert. I've got a shoe shop, play them. So it was self-funded by the community. So we had community ownership. But then we became a thorn in the side of licensed broadcasters because we were almost taking revenue from their advertising stream. We were selling out venues that held thousands with no massive budget. So I could say the experience I had and the impression we made over the decades that we did this journey has carved itself in history. And I think those were the templates for your choice FMs. Those were the templates for the KISS FMs. Those were the templates for Galaxy FM. And they were the massive and initial template for BBC One Extra. But I can go deeper than that, but I need an hour and a half. But
You
that's
need an
not,
hour.
it's not about what I can do. It's about what you guys can share.
It's
But I
amazing.
was, sorry, carry on. Yeah.
No, it's amazing. Like, this is the thing. Like, I remember growing up and listening to Choice FM, Southeast London, Baseline FM, all these stations, and it's weird. It's so like I always felt like in the UK there is this kind of up and down, this peaks and troughs thing. That's like something comes along, it's amazing, it kind of takes off, and then there's like a struggle part. There's this part where maybe it's not sustainable, and it's like it has troubles and it disappears, you know. And that kind of happened a lot with like. This happened with Pirate Radio, but it's not even things like Choice FM when they sold to what they sold Neil Kenlock, actually amazing photographer, was a photographer for the Black Panther Party. He actually was the founder of Choice FM, but and I remember Choice FM being down in Borough, and you know, you could literally just, I lived in Elephant, so I could literally just pop down there, you see all the stars and everyone and all the black artists and stuff. But I remember when they sold, I was like, oh, why would they do that? Why would they do that? Now there's nothing on the airways in a way, you know, and then kind of going to pirate. But it's like, I feel like we're constantly reinventing the wheel. And there's never been a company where it's like, okay, here's a Choice FM, you know, I want to get into radio. Instead of going to the BBC, instead of going to One Extra or whatever, let me go to this station, they'll hire me, they look like me, I could be myself. And let's start from there, you know, and it's like there's a payroll and all this stuff. It's always been constantly reinvented. So when I saw this is a segment into David and No Signal, it's kind of like, to me, I was like, okay, here we go again. It's another iteration of radio. It's another iteration of Black radio and the idea that Black people are running it and it's Black led. So I'm kind of excited, but I'm also kind of anxious. There's anxieties involved in trying to make something like that official and licensed, and the struggles that come with that. And before I kind of ask David some of the best parts of running a station, I just want to quickly share a segment that they actually did for BBC. Funny enough that we mentioned BBC. It's like I planned this. So let's watch this. It's just 5 minutes.
I'm 26 years old. I've barely listened to radio. We have no business saying, let's run a station. But I remember the day we said it, he was literally like, why don't we just do it? Not one person said no. Yeah. Not one person said how. We just said, okay, let's just do it.
So Jojo, he did his own parties named after himself.
People encouraged him to do more and more parties, and then it became a thing of like, do you know what? I'm just gonna plan these events.
We play black music.
Bashment,
hip-hop,
R&B, UK rap,
UK everything.
Thought of a name, Recess.
It was a place for us, by us. We never thought it was
gonna take the world by storm.
Take the world by storm, but we knew it was good.
Like, even, you know, doing Recess and having a name, we still try to go to venues and they're like, you know, we don't play hip-hop or we don't like R&B, because it's like coded language. Basically, they're just saying that they don't want Black people in their venues. The people who actually want to go to the events are probably being not let in, or they don't feel comfortable in certain spaces. So when they come to Recess, it's like, this is Black. These people are making this for us. We're gonna have an amazing time, and like there's no need to worry about anything. So we try to promote that as much as possible.
Oh my God,
Where yesterday? I think I'll say about recess parties, the best thing about them is that the energy is always good vibes. It's not pretentious, everyone can just come as they are, so inclusive. And that is testament to recess because no one ever wants to leave. Like, everyone is always here till the very last song. This used to be our home, but they're turning it to houses like they do with everything with London. I guess so.
Oh my gosh.
But Sticks, we miss you, honestly.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
We are collectively telling bars and nightclubs to close and not to open tomorrow.
It was a weird time because obviously we had plans this year to do so many things, to go abroad, to do big venues. So when the lockdown came, it was like, okay, how do we keep ourselves relevant in the streets?
We didn't want it to stop just because the parties were stopping. We wanted to provide entertainment to people at home.
It was a kick up the arse to really push No Signal.
I was thinking, you know what, there's loads of DJs that we know. Let's try and get them to do like a drop a set instead of being on IG Live. So we programmed like 3 hours of music a day, so like Monday to Friday. Made a little plan saying I want to have something that's interactive. So we told everyone, you know, listen, this is the hashtag, let's enjoy this first Friday night of lockdown.
That brought the audience together because you could tweet about it, you could talk about the music that you were loving, you were discovering new music as well. I think there is something unique about the audience for No Signal and how they interact.
When it turns into a whole like project, a whole like thing, I think there's an excitement because you're like, yo, like we're creating something for people to look forward to. You know what I mean? The first time I came, I thought it was Bofeng, you know, I can't lie, like. But the deep was actually not bad still. Not bad still. Hey, listen, yeah? You gotta start playing No Signal in the shop, boss. There's actually a jingle, yeah? It sounds just like you. I'll play it for you. It's mad. It sounds just like you. I thought it was you, bro. I'm being so serious. No Signal radio. Baddest.
Who is that?
I don't know, but it sounds just like him.
Baddest station called Road. No Signal radio.
Somebody I follow tweeted Drake versus 50 Cent 10v10. Who would win? And I was like, yo, DM'd him, like, yo, you can make this into a show. I've got the logistics. Boom.
NS10v10 takes 2 contestants, whether that's a team or one person.
So they'll have a list of 10 tracks and they go head to head with each track, and the audience who are listening on No Signal can vote on Twitter and say which track they think is the best.
The goal is to basically get the winning vote.
Make sure you're using the correct hashtags, as I said before. NS10v10.
First time I realised people were really, really excited about No Signal was when Missy Elliott had tweeted us about the Missy Elliott versus Busta Rhymes show. From there, we just blown up, like, all the celebrities want to be involved.
At like 7 p.m, we had about 8,000 people locked in already. That's not 10v10 yet, that's just people getting ready for the 10v10. And then by 8:30 p.m, there's about 23,000 people locked in.
To us, it was even like, yo, this is too crazy.
Good morning and welcome to Soul Surge. You're listening to Tony Supreme and you are locked into No Signal Radio. Hope you guys are feeling good this morning. We're going to get into some more music after that.
Amazing. You can, everyone who wants to watch the rest of that can you can watch it on BBC iPlayer. But David, like, you know, you're literally in it right now. You're doing Black Radio, you're doing the broadcast. You're in a way that, you know, you're cultivating a community and you're providing I want to say service because it isn't really a service, but you're providing community frequency nourishment to a community that didn't in a way needed it at the time during lockdown. How has that translated post lockdown? You know, what are what's been the highs and what's been something which are the struggles right now in a way?
You know what? Yeah, actually watching that back, because that was what, 2021, I believe, that documentary to you. So it's I haven't watched that. I haven't watched it back once actually. I don't know. I find stuff like that weird. So just watching that now, kind of just because we're actually going through a phase right now where we're like, okay, like what the hell are we supposed to do? Because we kind of stopped the airwaves. We haven't been on the airwaves this year because it's so interesting to see what G-Man was saying about the radio station that he was at after BBC, and about how events led, like funded it, and supporting the community funded it as well as like advertising. And it's so funny how that has not changed how many years later, because literally the same thing for us. Our event is what funds this because we don't do advertising. And our event is what allowed us to translate from real life into radio frequencies, as you heard in the documentary. And we kind of stopped going on air because we just felt like we then fell into like the cycle of British radio, shall I say. And British radio is very repetitive, very, it's the word conservative, because only some things you can say. British radio sometimes can be very like polished, you know, and we didn't start like that. You know, we started in the room of our parents' house, you know, and the airwaves wasn't that clear because we was doing it off internet. If I don't know, if my sister was decided she wants to play PlayStation because she loves a bit of Fortnite, then she's messing with the internet waves, and then we're trying to go live to about 10,000 people, and because she's trying to enjoy Fortnite at the same time, it's like, yo, sorry, you might have to stop Fortnite for the next 4 or 5 hours because we're trying to do a radio show right now. And it's like, yo, just those little things there, like, kept us like, I don't know, the roughness to it kind of makes you feel like, yeah, you're doing it because there's so many people at home at that time. And maybe, yeah, pandemic was what was needed to like catapult us to do that. But just because the pandemic ended, and I'm just saying this as a thought that I'm feeling now, I'm not saying it because I thought about this before, but just because the pandemic ended doesn't mean people still don't need that feeling of coming together, that feeling of having discussions together, that feeling of engagement together. Because like in this time of, like, I would say post-pandemic, TikTok then blew. So then content became shorter, attention spans became shorter. People didn't really care what other people were saying. People really like didn't care about other people's opinions and became very like selfish and self-centered. But radio to me was very community-led, because you are trusting another person, like a DJ or presenter. You're not just trusting their taste, but you're trusting their opinion to an extent, or you're engaging in some sort of conversation with them, whether you're calling in or you're tweeting along, or you're just listening to and having that conversation with the people in your house. Just that whole thing, I'm just not sure who is providing that right now on a mass scale. And we had that opportunity to provide that on a mass scale. And it was like, now I'm kind of thinking that, yo, just because the pandemic stopped doesn't mean we shouldn't have that same energy of like trying to aim the same levels as the Kiss FMs and blah, 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 in terms of the numbers. But just because when the numbers comes, people come knocking, brands come knocking, blah, blah, blah. And you kind of get lost in the system, in the game, you know? You kind of start to forget why you're actually here, because why money starts coming in. But then as another point to that side as well is that you also need money to pay people. You need money to keep it going. You need money to put food on the table. So also about finding that balance, which we have. We believe that we'll start to find that balance. You know, the studio that I'm sitting in right now, like, we wouldn't be able to get this studio if we didn't maybe work with certain brands and do certain stuff. And thank God, you know what I mean? We haven't sold yet. We haven't sold anything. Don't feel like selling it anytime soon either, because like, I feel like it was this year. It might be too late. It's never too late. But this year was, yeah, I really realized that, okay, like, this is more than just a moment in a pandemic and getting people through those days, because there's some people that are still like, even post-pandemic, they were like going through what they're going through, you know what I'm saying? So like, people are still going through what they're going through. And if I'm able to provide a radio frequency that sends good vibes to them, that sends goodness to them, that sends happiness to them, it's like, yeah, like, Yeah, man. This is just what I'm saying might not make too much sense because I'm only going through that realization now after watching that clip back of how the way I was talking then. I'm thinking, damn, like I even forgot I said that. You know, it's crazy.
That's so insightful. There's so much to go through there. I kind of wanted to bring in Yaa because I mean, there's so much pressure to, I don't know, we're living in a time where there's so much focus on the like economy and e-commerce and making things work and, you know, collaborating with brands and having to bring in, you know, like the whole idea of the broadcast industry, this one shape, and you're this whole different other shape, and you having to fit into that. You know, why can't we design a shape that fits the system you guys have right now? You
Honestly,
know,
and I've sat down with countless brands saying that. For example, we did something with one brand, and then we wanted to do something with another brand, and they're like, "Oh, because you've done something with our competitors, we can't do it." I'm like, "Yo, I do not care. I just need to make sure I can get this. I want to be in this space, this specific space, because I want to put some of the people that work here in that space, and I want to be able to push a certain community narrative." And it's like, whether I do it with you or that person, that doesn't matter to the people who I am broadcasting to. They don't care that if, oh, that's the competitor of that brand, oh, we shouldn't listen to this. No, they don't care. So when you have that mentality, then you kind of get like you kind of get into a point where you get frustrated. You're like, fuck it, we'll do it ourselves. But then when you have that mentality of fuck it, you do it yourselves, and you realize how expensive this thing is.
So expensive.
There's only so many events you can do.
Absolutely. And I know the Reese is successful in terms of how long has Reese been running for now?
Reese has been running since 2016.
It's a success story in itself, you know, to run a party, to run a community and to keep that going. But people have, you know, people grow. As a community grows, you're growing too, you know, and it's just kind of like
people grow, you financially as well. You can't rinse people every month.
Absolutely.
Evil. Like, how you just gonna be rinsing people out for money to do parties. People get tired, people get fatigued, the team gets fatigued, and it's like, okay, cool. And also the advertising in our community, it's just like, even just in the world in general, people will rather just go and post on Instagram and TikTok, and they probably get more things. So they're not gonna pay that much for advertisers. Advertisers doesn't even pay that much on radio. So then we're like at a position where it's like, bloody hell, what do we actually do? We try to the community, we try to do a GoFundMe, everyone cussed us saying that, why do you need that much money for? You asked for like 5 years, it will pay for this, it will do this. You know?
I remember that. I remember that. People don't understand that they actually, you know, you need millions to run a station.
We didn't even go up to that much.
I know, but it's like, if you even, so I think it was like 125 you guys had or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, if you're looking at four staff members and 125 entry-level salary, yearly salary, your budget's done.
Your
budget's done. You know, and that's just 1 year. You know, this is a big industry. It's so, like, I just want to bring in Yaa really quick, just because of this, as a designer and someone who's you know, participation in terms of like, you know, audience and practitioners and sound. Like, where do we even start? How bad is it? How bad are we designing? You know, it's like someone asked me recently about, you know, why is there so much bad design? And, you know, it exists in the world in terms of like, even just like products and things that are around us. And I say this because like people don't ask questions because they think they know the answers, you know, and then they just go and design and then, oh, this is bad design, like facial recognition. So like how bad is it? Where do we need to start like looking at, you think?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, thank you, David and G-Man. And I haven't thought so much about sort of broadcast design, like that's not my background. So I'm learning a lot also in this like conversation. But when you asked, I thought of, so recently, about a month ago, I saw a play at the Gate Theatre called Brassic FM, which I believe is actually when you DM me, because I was writing about sound, I guess technologies of care, and the set design is actually in this chat, but I don't want to embarrass them. Their name is Sandra Falache, and yeah, they did a brilliant job. But the play is on the history of pirate radio, and it took me down a whole watching it, but even like hearing about it in the lead up to it. You know, I was thinking that's when I kind of started to connect care and sound more like clearly. And but particularly seeing how like sort of pirate radio having been a space of like protest and like intentionally, I guess, like not fitting in with the like, I guess, confines of what like the British government allowed. And something really interesting I learned from that was also how the laws that are now used to police like in-person gatherings and protests, were the foundation of them was laid with the laws that were used to police raves. And so like just when you are trying to do something that is outside of and I think at the beginning David used the word a conservative to describe British radio. I think I would use that to describe the country, or the foundations, the structural roots of the country more generally. And so like something that at its core is community-led or meant to serve like people in a very, and that's I guess about enjoyment, just does not fit in with the way that things are set up.
It's almost like a cultural clash in terms of like how we operate as a community, and then the design around us, you know. And you know, I was looking at the hospitality and the idea of like the opposite of that is hostile, and it fascinates me how so many people are making money out of like Black culture, you know. When in the past it was like people, the DTI, Department for Trade and Industry, would hunt down people setting up pirate stations and confiscate their equipment, destroy their records, all these kind of, you know. And fast forward now, everyone's like, let's say everyone's making money, but there's a whole system, there's a whole culture in the UK that Black people have influenced, Black people have like literally played a part in, but it doesn't seem to be the economics doesn't seem to be touching our community or touching our pioneers, our leaders, our creatives in a way that can sustain them. You know, a station like a success, just even putting on a rave once a month for years is a success story. How is it that these people cannot cultivate a career and industry and pay people and actually, you know, it's kind of like, it's like a kick in the teeth, but it's also like a real big, to me, it's a wake up call. And this would be like, you know, this whole idea of reinventing the wheel we're constantly having to reinvent, and we have peaks and we have troughs, but there's nothing that we can actually pass down and say, look, come work for my company here, come work and stay with my, you know, I'll teach you the ropes. And it's like we're constantly having to redevelop. And I just, before I asked G-Man, I actually want to talk about this concept of yours of love economics. Is that correct? Is this idea of pouring back into a community? Because the people that ran those stations, the anxiety that you must feel, like just playing music, you're breaking the law. You know, there's this film called Footloose where it was like against the law to dance and stuff, and it was just ridiculous when you think of it. But these people are playing records, Black people playing vinyl. I've got vinyl here, and it's like that could lead you in 2 years in jail just for playing music and just for sharing your culture, sharing your knowledge, curating an airwave frequency that no one really owns, you know. And it's just, it kind of dawned on me that how bad it is in terms of like, you know, fast forward, and it's just nothing. It was still kind of hitting these problems. But yeah, kind of love economics. How does that play a part? Would you theoretically speculate how it could play a part in this repairing past as well as present?
Yeah, so restorative love economics is what I'm describing it as, which describes, or it's talking about what it means to redistribute love to the systemically underloved. So what we've been speaking about, like you saying, somebody going to jail for playing vinyl for free because it's outside of this. So because of my background in design research, thinking about how like the harm that people face on a structural level, which then shows up in our interpersonal relationships, intentional, and like how like sort of love and care is systemically designed outside of our lives, and the ways that what it would look like to like think about like returning it and like redistributing it more, what's the word? Because in that way, then like love is a resource. So I think when you hear the word economics, you think immediately like money, but resources are so wide. It's time, it's space, it's you know, being able to freedom, being able as a resource, being able to sort of play music without facing backlash. And so, I mean, I feel like you kind of answered the question that you're asking me in tying like my like work around that to the radio more clearly. So I would be interested to hear like you know what you, because we haven't heard as much from you, like how you like see that, how you saw that, like especially in regards to like pirate radio?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm very interested. I'm more interested than you guys and me. But you know, there is a system of how we share music, how we cultivate music. You know, Black people as a human race, we've been kind of creating music for the last 100 years. I'll say 50, 60, we've been broadcasting and recording it, and you know, we've been recording it longer than we've been it kind of differentiates. But you know, the system that we currently have, the royalty system and the copyright system, you know, not to say it's archaic, but it's changing. It's constantly changing with streaming, all these ideas, and how music is distributed is changing. And so to tell someone who's like a small, you know, entity, a small community, to pay the copyright fees and the licensing fees, the same as a huge conglomerate that has inherited a lot of that wealth and capital from stakeholders and, you know, various like investors, it doesn't make sense to me. You design accordingly to solve problems. And I feel like, you know, we're constantly, a lot of us is like, I look at No Signal's success, but yet, you know, they're not able to kind of look in the horizon and be like, yeah, this is what we're going to do next. They have to plan, they have to, where we're getting this money from, how are we going to pay for studio, how are we going to, you know, pay presenters, how, you know, people move, people grow. And I feel like for me, there definitely needs to be a restorative kind of like, we need to start from the ground zero. Can you even afford time? Can you even, you know, how's your work to time ratio? You know, how is this affecting your health? You know, can you commit to this? Can you commit to, you know, learning a craft? These are things that, for me, they exist in the space of leisure. And those who have leisure tend to be able to kind of cultivate a career, tend to be able to, you know, practice and play for free, and to do this time and time again, and travel and all these other things. You know, we inherently have not enjoyed, we're not in the sense of inherited that kind of luxury. We've inherited a lot of economic disadvantages. And so I feel like the design approach, we need to almost take a step back and be like, okay, we can't do that. We're going to have to do something different. But I actually wanted to chime in with G-Man in terms of like, you hear what David's saying about, because I was listening to, actually, let me just really quickly play this before I start. But in terms of e-commerce, but just direct to consumer, providing your own hub of sustainability, almost like Black Wall Street, in a way that they were able to kind of provide for their community and create a whole economy. Just wanted to play this quick advert. Hopefully it'll work. Let's see.
Birmingham of the Coventry Road presents on Friday the 19th of August, by public and popular demand.
Mighty Diamonds are backed by their own backing band straight from Yard. Support is by our own sister of Irisham, Joy Mack, backed by the Studio 2 Band. Tonight I'm gonna take it. Music on the Wheels of Steel by Washington's Love Showcase.
Southall in Middlesex. This night is designed to get you in the carnival fever with music by Midlands award-winning Calypso Rose from PCRL Radio. Also from Fresh FM in London, Quincy, Big T and Kim. The session kicks off from 10 p.m. till 3 a.m. Coaches leave at 8:15 p.m. sharp outside PCRL's headquarters. Price inclusive of coach is just £12 with tickets available from Dun Christie and PCRL. For further information, ring 454-9152. That's 454-9152.
Keep this party burning hot till daylight. You're going to get your money's worth
tonight. Gandhi, wake up. Whoa, don't. Look at the blanket, man. I had a dream. It's a TCB fresh return for the more dance at the first birth night party at the Hummingbird Dale in Birmingham on August the 21st, 1988.
Ganti, who did they on the bill, man?
Well, and them said them had put back a reggae and soul all day, you know, with wee Papa Rapper girls, Peter Honingale, Maccabee, Deluxe, Peter Culture, Peter Spence, Trevor Dixon, Jimmy English, and many more.
But Ganti, in the dream, who did they play the music?
You have Crystal Force, Main Attraction, Crush Pack Connection, Constructive Trio, and what's the of a showcase 1988. And guess who else?
It must be me, did have the same dream as well. Cause Angel Lee, Tyrone, Melody, TC Show, Dr. Haas, and the Chic Squad did it as well.
And them have a special international artist on the bill that night, me telling you, man. You know, had the Hummingbird crazy. It's true. It's true. Tickets price £4 available from all usual outlets.
What date again?
Sunday the 21st of August. TCB Fresh return. It was a bad dream. Don't forget, we have a raffle. 2 free tickets for Michael Jackson show. Can't believe it.
You're listening to a better sound of CRL.
Amazing. Is that a throwback?
you know that was me, right?
Is it? Oh, I didn't even know that was you. That's amazing.
You can hear me mention my name 5 times in that. That was like, oh my God. Right, just for those of you who are in attendance, that advert is 37 years old. Yeah, that'll give you a rough idea.
Wow.
Yeah. We did that when I was in our 20s. Oh my days. That is actually history you've got there. You've got some real, that is a gem. Wow, that's made me giggle. I've not heard that. That was actually recorded, funny enough. Does anybody remember cassette players that were just long and they had a handle that pulled out and you press one button to eject the tape up like that? It was just recording on one of those. That was it. We had no studio, no, just into the cassette mic, the condenser mic on top of the cassette.
Yeah. Wow.
That's why we're talking so, because the tape was going around like this. But I mean, back to the subject matter. David, I salute what you've done. First of all, I mean, wow, you know, because I think one of the greatest battles that I know you shouldn't use the word pirate radio, but it is what it is, yeah, was sustainability. Yeah, this was the greatest struggle of all, yeah, and if companies suffered with sustainability, because after a while, the food was a community money, which couldn't last forever. The food was money coming in from events that wouldn't last forever. Because what happened was, which was one of the biggest setbacks in the Midlands, a lot of the Chrysalis group, they started off with, I think they were, they owned Galaxy, or one of them, the Chrysalis group. They came in and said, we're coming on. And they made their advert rates competitive to pirate rates. So then our own community were going, you know what? I'll spend my money legal and get further out. So we lost that income stream. Yeah. So if we did a charity drive to raise some money, sadly, people from within our community, let's tell it like it is. I'm a very honest guy. Our community don't give to community. Yeah. You put a community drive. What do you want the money for? But you put a party on, they'll buy the ticket for that. Yeah. You put the party on for £47. They will buy 2 Sanchez D tickets for £90. But if you say to them, hey guys, look, we need some money to help our infrastructure, just a £20. Nah, you know, I could do that £20. And we dried our own resources up as a community. We did it. Yeah. So sustainability was very, very hard. And then if you went to institutions to say, look, we've got this, they want ownership. They want your intellectual property for giving you money. So are you going to sell your soul for a massive income stream either? No, you're not. So when you stay true to the cause, you stay true to being broke. That's the bottom line. Yeah. People do not realize that, you know, money is not the root of all evil. Money is the root of paying my antenna fees. People don't realize. I used to sit in a room. Okay, I'm in my conservatory now. Our studio was half the size of this. For every record I played, I put it back in my bag and pushed the bag outside of the tower block. So when the DTI came, they could only confiscate the record on the turntable. Do you understand me? So imagine vibing a radio show, putting a record on the deck, running outside the flat, putting it outside the building, because they could only confiscate what was inside the building. So imagine that. People didn't know you're putting one record on, one of outside. Okay, ladies and gents, I'm back. And you were doing that constantly. You're looking at the tower block. You're waiting for the police to pull up. You'd count the steps. You'd memorize the steps because the day before you'd run up the steps and count them. So you knew I got a record and a half before the DTI come. Yeah? So imagine that. And you have the intellect and the skill to deliver a mind-blowing radio show while watching for the DTI, taking records off the deck, hiding them outside the flat. And then when you know they're on the 4th floor, you go, right, ladies and gents, I'll be right back after this advert break, right? And then you put your coat on, you stand outside the flat, and you wait. You go, do you know what's happening in here? I don't know, officer. I'm just getting some shopping for my mama. I'm gone, excuse me. And I pick my bag up, and you run down 17 flights of stairs, and yo, raid, I come. And you'd scatter. But guess what you do next week? You find another tower block. And then, okay, I hope the police hit it. And you kick off the access door on the top roof, right? And you find where the security lights are. Then you take the bulb off, take the cover off. You have 2 live wires, plus and negative, no earth. You have to make the earth yourself. Then you run that to your transmitter and you're back on again. But those are the struggles we had to do. Night after night after night. Then you go to the community and say, hey, community, we're doing a fundraising drive to keep our radio station on. Sorry, guys, we can't support you. We've got to buy a ticket next week for the concert. But then your transmitters have to be bought. The transmitter engineer has to be paid his money and so forth. Then we sort of developed the technology of called repeater antennas, where your studio could be in one location, you'd piggyback it to another location, and then onto the transmitter. So as soon as your radio station went, shh, we've been raided, just jump to the next tower block and continue. So we were quite ingenious at the time to do these things. But understand this, and Daniel will understand this, David, sorry, with 0 resources, no income stream. We did it by the legs and the mindset of our wits. Yeah. So imagine the powerhouse we were back then with no income. Look at the massive media engine people built with no income. So imagine if we had those incomes, where would we be today? We would create a legacy of media houses for the younger generation to come along and say, I want to be part of that. It is self-funded. It is job creating. It has the well-being of the community involved, and so forth and so forth. But hey, technology also destroyed that. Our attachment to technology, our attachment to these devices killed it. Because Bob and his uncle are now broadcasters. You stick something into your phone, put it on your YouTube channel, on your Instabook or your Facegram, whatever you call them these days. I'm too old, right? And you're a radio station. There's adverts now on YouTube. How to start your own radio station online. Yeah? So www. destroyed pirate radio. www. almost took away the essence of black media and gave it to the public. It went, everybody can get it now. So you're no longer a bespoke entity giving that music to your community. Anybody can do it. So you've got to say to yourself, okay, how can I take back ownership of black media? I can take it back. How can I retain that powerhouse, make it a self-funding environment, a self-funding engine so I can do this job? And the only reason you're going to do that, only way you're going to do it, is create a financial power base. Yeah? But that financial power base is not, and I will say it to you with no loose terms, it's not going to come from your community. It'll come from like-minded individuals coming together as a collective. Yeah? And I'm going to just want to touch on one thing. What we don't understand is, if you look at the Americas, look how many black millionaires there are in America compared to how many black millionaires we have in the United Kingdom. Ours here are through sports and kicking a ball. Yeah? They have more financially secure black millionaires. And I'll tell you why that is. Let's go forward. You remember everybody's talking about the Windrush era, right? That was generation 1. of Caribbeans and Africans coming here. Generation one. That generation had children. I'm generation two. That's it. I'm generation two, the second generation here. My children are generation three. But in the United States, you had those that were handed land by the plantation owners, those that had the children from the plantation owners. And it went on via Al Capone's era, the cowboy eras, and it went down to generations. So Black wealth in the United States of America is 7 generations deep. We're only 3 in the United Kingdom. We're only 3 generations deep of a power base. So the only way people think we're going to get money to run our Black media houses is to go and say to the man, the system, your Virgin Medias, whatever powerhouse, your Sonys, is can we have some money to sustain this thing to give our people a voice and a musical platform? And all they're going to say is, yeah, we will give you the money, but we would like it to sound like this, or we would like it to sound like this. And those of you that are quite older, not my age probably, Black media was pigeonholed. On mainstream stations, it was only good to go on after 10 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, at midnight, on the graveyard shifts. We work. We've got jobs. So you're saying our people can only listen to it at midnight, and it goes on and on. There's a mandate that is out in the world of media. And if I get my hands on a copy, I'll send it to you, Daniel, right? But we were never allowed to achieve that power base, yeah? Because understand, as a culture, as a people, look at what we built with nothing. Imagine what we would build if we had it.
You know, I'm gonna just pause there for a second. There's a really interesting question in the chat, and it's this from Jazz, and it says, how is community being defined here? Is there collective working definition for this conversation? You know, it's interesting. I kind of want to answer. I want to speak to that. I want to touch on one thing, but I definitely want to get to that also. But it's just there's a thing. It's almost, I don't know. There's like there was this. You know, when Maya will know this experience when you invite people to come to an event. And you say anybody can come, anybody will come. And there's degrees of people, there's degrees of everyone is like from all the walks of life. And I think it was a MAIA event or something maybe a Morris at one time. There's like, it's not just community, there's communities, there's all different types of communities. The Black community is not just one community, there's many different types of communities, many ways to be Black, there's many ways to exist on this island as a Black person. And often when you're bringing people together, you're gonna come across these points of separation or degrees of like friction, or you know. And there's a thing that you guys, David, you did as an interview where you said you can't please everybody, and there is also this idea of when you're bringing people together in a room and telling them get along, just work. There's going to be things that are going to come to the surface, and you know, we talk about community trying to help and asking communities to kind of like chip in and pay for all these things. But if you're from a working class background and you know you've inherited a lot of disadvantages, how can you give? You know, how can you donate your time? How can you if you're working all the hours around the clock and you're time poor and you work poor, how can you contribute? You know, and I say that because there are invisible problems in the Black community. There are things that come to the surface when you get people together. And I wanted to touch on this thing that happened at No Signal when there was this the xenophobia incident when we did the Burna Boy and Vibes Cartel. And there was Wizkid and Vibes Cartel. And you know, it's kind of like you not only are you're providing kind of like this station, this entity of like entertainment and community and joy, but you're also bringing people together that may have all the cracks in the community come to the surface, whether it be economics, whether it be mental or financial, all these kind of physical, all these things come to the surface, and it's like nothing preps you for that, because like I feel like when you created No Signal, you just wanted to create vibes, you wanted to create you wanted to help people, but then you were faced with all these things that are these ugly truths, the good, the bad, and the ugly. of like where we are right now in the UK, and how maybe design and how maybe by default these things are kind of like creating these problems in itself. The reason why I'm here, the reason why I'm speaking this language and not my own, is because of colonization, because of the idea of the spoils of empire, the idea of like there's no such thing as Nigeria even. You know, where do you know, in terms of Nigeria was created like a concept by the British, you know, before there was many different tribes, and then, you know, colonization to come together, work it all out. Even with our problems, everything, just work it out. And it's this idea of just get it together. And it's this kind of, you know, with design, again, if you go, design is about solving problems, where you need to sometimes not prune the leaves, but dig the roots. And our radio DJs, are they the people to really like solve those problems? Are they trained? You know, so when you say anyone can come to an event, there's all this safeguarding, there's this first aid stuff, because anyone can come to the event. And if anyone comes and if someone has a medical, they need medical attention, or they have you know, there's a mental health breakdown, who's there to actually serve them? Who's there to actually help them? You know, there's this like we pay taxes in this country, but yet the healthcare system doesn't really tend to our cultural needs or our cultural understandings, and we tend to be, you know, what's the word? We're kind of on the sidelines most of the time, or on the fringes. And so there's when these questions arise, I feel like by default we're kind of I don't know, we're not the best people to sometimes answer them or speak to them. I'll touch on this tangent. It's like when Clubhouse, this is a design product. It's a product that was designed, the social media idea that came about, tech bros, you know, via the pandemic. It's an amazing platform where you could talk, almost like radio, live. For the moment, you have to tune in. That's another thing it has in common with radio. You have to tune in. If you miss it, you miss it. Now they can record and that stuff, but you had to be there. And one of the things that I found that I would always listen and be like, if someone's sharing a lot of stuff and they're not, you know, you can't safeguard that person. If they're sharing hurtful stuff, abusive stuff about themselves or about their lives, you can't protect. There's nothing you can do. Once that person logs off, you don't know if they're okay. You don't know if they're having a breakdown. You have no idea, you know, and it's kind of like design. We can build tools that bring us together. We can also build tools that, you know, push us apart. Yeah. And I'm kind of interested to see, like, well, I'll answer that question, but also, what was your experience of like being faced with like ugly truths in our communities? How do you feel during that time?
Is that for me?
For you, David? Yeah, just talk about that, and then I want to kind of go into this question then.
Yeah, you know what? Like, it was quite upsetting. You know, it was quite upsetting because when you feel like you're building something, because at first, yeah, it did start like for fun, and then it became the thing where you took it so serious that no, like people are really enjoying this, and it's bringing people together, and then you put so much effort and time into it, and your own money, and at the same time, you also have a job because you got to provide for your bills, put food on the table. And then moments like that happen where people are now using that as a time to now start going against each other and making it like a this culture versus this culture. And you kind of think to yourself that, yo, like, sometimes I feel like in the Black community, we don't understand how powerful community is. And there's two ways to it, because it's always easy to blame I would say, what's happened in the past, but we can't ignore it. Yeah. And when I say we can't ignore it, is that even if you look at media today, when they say community radio, it is basically the Black stations and the station that play predominantly Black music. And they be like, yeah, this is like grassroots Black. Then you go from there, then you go to One Extra, then you go to Capital, then you go, and then I look at it and I'm like, but sometimes I feel like the impact that we have at this level of community level is much more impactful than the Capital and those said stations. And I'm not saying that in a way to disrespect them or to discredit what they've done. Like, they obviously serve a community that really do listen to them because they have millions of listeners. Cool. But in terms of impact, it's two different things. Like, because that's what we had to learn the hard way as well. Because when we blew in a pandemic, for example, that show you mentioned, that show over 1 million people locked in across the whole world. And we was using one online radio app like system kind of thing, and it crashed. The company emailed us to never use the system again and never come back because it crashed their servers. Then everyone else that was using the radio in the world couldn't use it for like a week. So they're like, yeah, you can't come back here again, and you can't. So you have to go and find it. In that moment, I had to call my friend at YouTube during the show. I had to call my friend at YouTube. Can you please whitelist our page? And I only know her because she comes to our parties that we do before the pandemic, but she works at YouTube. I said, can you whitelist our page? Because we're on air right now, the biggest show we've ever had. And there's bare people right now, and we've just been kicked off our thing. Can we please? She did it so quickly. And I don't know how she did it. She did it, was able to now send everyone to YouTube to go listen to it. And then we thought, yeah, this is crazy. We just had 1 million people locked in. And then the next week, we was having like 125K weekly listeners. Like people were just listening all the time. That's when we decided to scale up, because why? We're now chasing numbers. And we forgot that it's impact over numbers. Cool. So then when you now start chasing numbers, you then start unnecessarily scaling up. You start bringing people in that don't need to be brought in. You start doing this, blah, 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 blah. Next minute, it's now the quality is out the window. You're just trying to do 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. You don't even care about the quality. It's just as long as we're serving those 125,000 people that are there. And it's like, then we now fell into that system I was talking about before of British radio, where it's numbers, and not really impact. And then we now start to realize the impact was going less and less and less, because when it was impact over numbers, we was playing music that we generally wanted to push. And I liked what you said about there's different communities, even amongst the Black community. And that's what No Signal was all about. It was because we was playing music from the Black community that not a lot of people would play in other Black stations, what they classify as Black stations. Because it was like, we was playing, we might play like, I don't know, for example, some Sudanese music, and it'd just be Sudanese strings. We might play some Black rock music, because they don't know that Black people make rock music. We might play some ska, as in a lot of young people don't know about ska. But I was in a band, I played the drums when I was young. When we moved to Essex, and I met this Jamaican uncle, and he introduced me to ska, and I ended up being in a band playing ska. But if I didn't meet this person, I wouldn't know. So I'm like, using all these things that we know. So how can we like introduce people to these new sounds? We start using our platform. There was actually an artist that we played on that show that you spoke about, that you mentioned. We played this artist. He had, before we played that song, I'll never forget it. On Spotify, it said 1,000 streams with the arrow next to it, meaning it's probably like 40 streams or something. It's not a lot of streams. After that show, I kid you not, he had like 100,000 streams. Within a week, a label signed him. He's now this big artist. And we're thinking, okay, so that is the impact we're talking about, as in other people are now eating. It's not just okay, we're trying to go for numbers and it stays in this room. It's like, okay, that person, we put this person, they get to eat. We do advert, that community gets, that shop gets some more people buying from their stuff. And it just became like, for us, it became a thing where it's like, okay, cool. We had to stop. We stopped going on the air because it became like taxing on the mind as well, because you're always thinking about money. How do we pay this? How do we pay that? How do you do this? And then someone just told us, yo, listen, man, like, that's all gonna come. The fact that you even still been able to even pay your rent for your studio, which a lot of people that go through like the pirate, we call ourselves Black Radio, and I love it because I feel like Black Radio is just the evolution of pirate radio. Because we also didn't like the term pirate radio, because we was called it at first because we actually didn't know what legal things to pay. We just went online, and then when it became big, that's when we started getting emails. People started emailing us like, how are you playing this with no license? We're like, license? He was like, what the hell? So we learned the hard way. Shit hit the ceiling, hit the ceiling fan, and it got very messy. And then we had to really pattern up. And as you said before, we're paying the same fees as these lot, because when we're now reporting our numbers in the pandemic, we're doing the same numbers as Kiss Fresh. We're doing the same numbers, even more than one extra. Right. So they're thinking, oh, that means you can pay their fees. And I'm doing this at my mom's crib. Here we go. You know what I mean? And at that time, my brother and I were even sharing a room, two single beds in a room. We have the Apple Mac on, we had the Apple Mac for years, some old Apple Mac, and we was using it with one condenser mic like this. And we just gave everyone a code, and every DJ will log into wherever they're from, whether they're in Birmingham, whether they're in Manchester, they will log in. And it was just like all that effort, and then you see people complain. It's like, I don't think people understand how important community is, because maybe media has made community sound like it's grassroots, and grassroots is not a good thing, and they make it sound like grassroots is early, and once you get to grassroots, and even football in every community, it's the same thing. You know, once you get to a certain level, the big white man in the big suit comes with the check, And he says, yeah, I'm taking you out of this community because you're now ready to go to the big world. And it's like, hey, this is the big world. If you understand how much power we have, for example, growing up, like, I know how my parents have acquired it. I think my mom used to have a shop on Mare Street, and it was a nut place. She sold like nuts and organic stuff and all this stuff like that. And I will remember that her and her friends and her cousins, blah, 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 well, they're not cousins, but fake cousins, they will do this thing called Ajo, which is like a Nigerian thing. And I feel like every community has this, just have different names for it. Every month they'll collect money, there'll be someone's turn to do something. And from that, people were buying shops, people were getting houses, people were getting this, getting that, getting that. And I was like, okay, so imagine that's happening for a group of 30 people. And they're getting houses, they're getting shops, they're getting cars, they're getting building what they want to do. So imagine it's like, yo, if we said together like, yo, we could really like, and no one is having ownership in my mom's shop or that person's house. They're just saying that we need this, so you're going to have it. And I don't want anything to do with it. When it's my turn, I'll do my own. This is my turn. But now it's like, you ask the community something like, oh, we want to have ownership into it as well. Even if it's just £20, is that we want to have ownership as well. You're thinking, bro, it's like, if you understand the impact of what we're doing and what we're trying to build, but then it's like, people then keep taking us back to, yeah, like, it was the pandemic and it was a good time and it's that, and now we're back to reality and life is lifing and all of this stuff. And it's like, yo, man, it's like, we don't want to do this like, oh, fuck everyone, we're in, because that's also not healthy, because like, I'm sure the people that have fought some of the craziest fights in this world and a lot of revolutions that happened, I'm sure people thought Martin Luther King was crazy and thought all those people, they probably thought they were sick, crazy, like what the hell was wrong with you? Why don't we just all calm down and just we find a way to work it out? But like, we've had to have this forced tenacity, and at your age is hard because you're trying to communicate with people at your age that you need to do this, you need to build this, and they're thinking, raw, like, you're my age mate. Why am I?
Why? Yeah.
You're older than me.
Why should I invest?
So then there's so many fights that we're fighting till today, and it's like, we're gonna get there in the end, because at the end of the day, we don't want to be another story like, this radio station, they had it and then they couldn't get funding, and then this radio station, and then it was like, yo, all those radio stations have gone through everything they've gone through for us to not follow the same way. Done it so we can learn from that station to that station to that station. Now we are here now. G-Man said that jingle was 37 years ago. Do you know how, like, I'm 29 years old. I wasn't even born. That's how long this cycle's been going for. And it's like, when will this cycle stop? Do you know what I mean? When would it stop? So yeah, still
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? There's so many things that I've had to kind of scrap a lot of my notes and stuff and just go with the flow. And you know, it's only 2 hours, so we're only going to do so much and touch on so many points. And there's so much to kind of unpick from there. And it's just true. It's like, there's this kind of, it goes back to basics, food, clothing, and shelter. And it's the idea of that, you know, I speak about housing a lot in my work, because a lot of my work is kind of speculating space and my relationship to space. And I talk about social housing as the bedrock for a lot of the subcultures that have come out of the Black community and impacted the cultural landscape of the UK. And currently, social housing is no longer a focus in this country. Like, houses are disappearing, you know, big, expensive properties are kind of popping up. And, you know, I've always said that if we're not living in social housing, we're not living together. And if we're not living together, we're not creating together. And if we're not creating together, we're not then impacting the cultural landscape. If we're not impacting the cultural landscape, we are disappearing. And that's what we're at right now. I think, you know, if we look at the reality of it, these conversations, and we're moving more and more into virtual spaces, which is great, but there are problems with that too. But in terms of like a physicality of being able to solve a problem in your community, because you have people around you, of elders around you, you know, it shouldn't be, you know, should it take an online discussion for the intergeneration connections, you know, for people from various different backgrounds and walks of life to come together and solve problems. But because we're not, the locality of it, it kind of impacts that, especially when you're time poor and you're limited in your hours in the day. I wanted to quickly touch on the idea of designing better or futures, and kind of how to kind of like, I really liked this article, Designing Care Futures into Being, that Yaa on Substack. I bring this up because there's an element of like this idea of doing for self and having to kind of like create your own systems and new systems, I really, I'm passionate about. And there's this element here where you talk about, why is it my, I highlight that text? Interesting. Anyway, here we go. So this section here, I really like, because I don't know if anyone, I'm not really a big Marvel fan. I don't really know much about the universe, but there's this element here where it says, remember that scene in Avengers of Infinity War? With a snap of his fingers, Thanos disappears half of the human population from existence. In this fictional version of Earth, we see people from all over the world slowly disintegrate, while those who love them are left with memories and are forced to move forward in this post-apocalyptic reality. I'm very dyslexic, so if I sometimes it's hard for me to read and talk at the same time, especially with the chat. Sorry if I see some stuff and I'm not reading it properly. So there's this idea here. Now imagine that psychic, spiritual, emotional shifts would occur in response to. Okay, I interviewed the now late former mayor of Accra, Ghana, an architect historian. Okay, this is the part. Sorry. Excuse me. We'll learn together. It talks about indigenous spatial design, and I love this idea of building in a way for self. That the idea of radio, having to build something for yourself because it's not there, and the idea of cultivating cultures and tailor-made, not one size fits all. I love the idea of building buildings that only the landscape to. The buildings were built in such a way that it was difficult to get into and get out of unless you lived there. To afford protection to residents. You entered and you were in a compound. Most of the huts were arranged around the compound. It was pretty difficult to know where you were in the structure if you were not familiar with the internal logic. You had to kidnap people in the middle of the night without making any noise. He shared, and in doing so, explained the intentionality behind the tightly clustered structures and narrow paths that seemingly go into circles and make up the neighborhood in Accra. He was referring to, although largely demolished to make way for new developments, this lingering spatial artifact is an example of how we will design to meet our needs. Design here referring to our ability to shape the world through intention. And I feel that's where we need to be. That's where we need to kind of start, starting from. How do we design sustainability into what we do, as opposed to just it hitting us in the face and down the road, And I don't know if that brings out anything that you want to kind of speak to, but the things you've heard today, and the struggles and the difficulties. How important do you think designing with intention is going forward?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Just to voice over for people who I guess aren't familiar with that, but it was a reflection from a open heart clinic session that I had. So one of these research sessions that I'd had on on systemic barriers with care, and it was with the Free Black Women's Library in Brooklyn, in New York, and I was using the work of Black women writers to think about design, mobile and care and love, and how those things intersect. And the piece that Daniel was reading out, I was talking about how I'd interviewed this architectural historian many years ago, who's since passed away, about this neighborhood in Accra, why it was built the way that it was, and he seeing how essentially slavery had led to the buildings being built very close together, and particularly the compound homes. You were talking about the living room having disappeared, and in that way courtyards and having this collective space had been really important, but also the homes kind of being circular and facing one another and being tight, to prevent slave raids from taking people in the middle of the night. And from there I was thinking again about one, design, as I was writing, around being shaped around our needs, but also this harm, and how it's, even if we don't have the language for it anyway, it still is shows up in our reality. But in terms of like the question that you asked, David was talking about how like you ask people to donate and then like things are hard, and it's like things are also actually hard. And we were talking, I think it was you, no, Daniel, who mentioned about leisure, and when you don't have like this leisure time, you start to see it finding it harder for like cultural work. And I recently moved to Southeast London, and I've been thinking, so we're spending a lot of time on like Thameslink and National Rail, and also feeling the pain of Southeast being the least connected part of London and the most like, historically having the most like Black owners. And I'm like, this feels intentional. But yeah, around that, like just, you know, we talk a lot about the cost of living crisis, and also London being like super expensive, rent being super expensive, people being pushed like further and further out, and like it just being harder to connect, let alone then to like come together and like build things. And yeah, I would say like that's, I guess that would be like the first place, and I don't have like an immediate solution to mind, but I'm just trying to, I guess, create those connections between like how, like you brought up, like housing, transport, healthcare, and how like these do prevent us like from not just forming but like sustaining community and like relationships with one another, which shows up in things like radio as well.
Amazing. I want to see, we have 10 minutes left, and I want to see if we can have some questions from the chat, or if anyone wants to actually even just join, you can unmute yourself, and we can, in the last 10 minutes, we can maybe chime in and have some discussion. Otherwise, you can keep talking.
I was just gonna ask
real
quick. Oh gosh, my camera's not on. I'm basically in bed, but I was just gonna ask Daniel, you asked about sustainability. What kind of sustainability is this? Like like, I don't know if I'm saying this word right, longevity, or like how, you know, of the actual potential station, or like, do you mean like in terms of finances? Because I think you asked Yaa if she had any ideas on like designing for like a sustainable station. I think that's what you asked.
Yeah, it's so, man, I could ramble on for forever on that. You know, it's this idea that, I don't know, making people who have the least do the most work, I think is just unfair, and it's not sustainable. That's what I meant. And I think if we're really going to think sustainably and we're going to think about longevity, we need to start making sure that we're, I don't know, cultivating, whether it be projects, design, companies, whatever it is, with the right balance. You know, so someone who is work poor and time poor shouldn't necessarily be doing a lot of the heavy lifting. You know, someone who is maybe time poor but work rich, maybe they got resources to fund someone who is maybe time rich but work poor, you know, and actually starting to see the balances and the differences that we all exist in, and try to play to our strengths. We're all children of the diaspora also, you know, we have, in a way, we've kind of by our parents come to here, or whatever means you are here now, we've all kind of like silently agreed to this system of capitalism and the system of, you know, this rat race economy. We're all children from the diaspora. We have places, we have spaces we can go, you know, say we can go to, but we have connections, and we have worlds that, you know, could be cultivated and could have infrastructure and could develop sustainable income, and I don't know, infrastructure for us to provide them. We could do skill swaps, we could do skill shares, we could, you know, create no visa travel for certain countries, you know, all these things. I feel like I'm interested in looking at more of a bigger picture. You know, is the UK our final destination? Did we just come here to disappear, or did we come here to cultivate something? You know, our dreams, or my mum's dreams, was to come here and cultivate something in return, and that hasn't happened. So I'm thinking, if something isn't working, when do we start to say let's redesign something and maybe look elsewhere? We're in a changing of the guard. There's this new era, not new era. There's a new shift in like the diaspora. This experiment, maybe we're the last of a change. I don't know. I'm rambling on, but I see someone's hand up. I see Amara's hand up. Let me get him. How do you unmute someone? There you go.
You do. Thank you. I kind of want to pick up on the point that a few people have made about like success and impact. And in the spirit of giving people their flowers, which I love to do, G-Man, I'm about to call out your government, sir. G-Man, that thing of like, our people have really been about it for a long time, and G-Man is like one of the voices of Birmingham, for real. But G-Man has done so many things alongside the direct like radio stuff. G-Man came and set up. Oh, my son's now calling me. Come celebrate G-Man with me. G-Man come to my school and set up a radio station, and he helped us learn how to broadcast. G-Man used to host like work experience placements at New Style Radio.
Who's that?
That's us, son. And he literally I went to a girls' school. He gave like a bunch of us girls from the inner city that loads of other places and people wrote off. He gave us a whole other level of confidence in our voice. Trust me, son. And there's so many other things that G-Man has been a part of, but I can confidently say that I wouldn't have the confidence to do anything that I do now. There wouldn't be a MAIA without G-Man. There wouldn't be a Yard without G-Man. Oh, well, let's not do that. There wouldn't be so many things about a G-Man. So I just wanted to big that up and acknowledge that, but also invite us to think about what does success look like that isn't just a straightforward, like we always talk about the things that the seeds that we plant, the trees might bloom after us, or we might not even realize it. But I want to ask and big you up. What do you dream about? What do you dream is next? What do you dream about for now? And that's a question to all of the speakers.
That's amazing. That was actually that's my last question. What do you dream? It's like we planned this.
Okay, I might as well go for it.
There's one more. Actually, before you answer, let's ask this one question here, and then we'll wrap it all up. Yeah. So we ask two. So you can ask two questions. Path. Sorry, have you?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, am I pronouncing the name right?
Yeah, Path.
Okay. What's your question, so that we can then tie it into what's your dream, and then your question, so we can answer too.
Yeah, of course. So I was originally thinking it was probably for G-Man or David, but then probably for Yaa as well. But I guess my question would just be around any advice you would give for someone looking to create a community and a new media platform that is more community funded and community driven, just with like your wealth of experience and all the things that you'll have done.
Okay, amazing. So yeah, G-Man, those two questions, what do you dream of, and advice for people wanting to set up?
I have a dream that one day, sorry, nearly did a Martin Luther King then. My dream, it's very simple. I'm going to make it quite clear. I dream we no longer have to walk around with a begging bowl. We can feed ourselves. That's it. Yeah, because when we need, we reach out. We should be able to sustain ourselves. We as a people, as a collective, have the wealth and intellectual property. We have the spare finances. It's how we choose to direct those finances. We can support, but it's our personal choice to support. Do you want those Jordans, or do you want to help somebody build a community radio station? Do you want the brand new Galaxy folding phone? It's a gift, by the way, it's a gift, yeah? Or do you want to help a radio station? It boils down to choice. So I dream that one day the world, not just the UK, because I don't want to think that small. Yeah, I may live locally, have a national mentality, but an international vibe and a global wealth of experience. So I'm not small, by no means necessary. They say, reach for the sky. Forget it. That's small. Reach for the stars, because if you fall short, you've passed the sky. Get it? So that's what I'm going to say to you. And one more, I want to leave with a nugget. Then I can go on to Paf's question quickly. Yeah? Problems is where we stop functioning. Problems is where we say, I'm giving up, I'm not doing this no more. So how you manage problems is one of my personal mantras that I'm going to share to you today. Get your pens out for this one. If you let a problem rent space in your head, it takes up a mortgage. Remember that. Shall I say it again or you got it? If you let a problem rent space in your head, it's going to take up a mortgage. Operate on solutions, on solutions, on solutions. Problems don't exist. Remember that. So funding a radio station, Paf, to get it off the ground, to start it, what you have to do is create a like-minded power base. Yeah? And when I say like-minded, you have a vested interest. You sing the same song. You dance the same beat. You have the same ethos. Yeah? You're looking for the same outcomes. You have the same synergy. And you may not think alike, but that's how you're going to do, because the word power, people say, yeah, they've given me the power. They've given me the power. Have no misrepresentation of the word power. Power is not something you're given. It is something you take. We need to take ownership and create our own power base. And Paf, when you get those like-minded people, you will build your own power base. Love you all.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much, G-Man. Absolute pleasure to have you on board. And you stepped in last minute. This G-Man stepped in last minute because someone else couldn't make it. And, you know, it was meant to be that you was here tonight. It's meant to be. So thank you so much. David?
Yo.
What do you dream of and advice setting up community?
Boy,
media?
I feel like G-Man has therefore touched on what I was thinking. And for me, I just dream about like having the world see, and I thank God that what I'm doing is in like the era of the internet where you're able to put something out and anyone across the world can connect to you. Well, most places of the world, should I say. So just being like Black people to see Black British entertainment as impactful as they see Black American entertainment. Because I feel like we really underestimate the importance of being like a Black Brit. Yeah, we are like in our individual identities in terms of our heritage, for Africans, Caribbeans, and we have so much different background. But in terms of being like a Black British person, our lingo, the way we speak, the way we dress, the mixture between Jamaican patois and then some African slang, and then now there's this whole melting pot of different tongues in Black British words that we use. That's just been inspired by the cultures of our background, our music, everything. I want the world to see it, and not just in the eyes of like badness, like Top Boy. And I love Top Boy, don't get me twisted, but I want the world to see other sides to Black Britain and other things to Black Britain, you know, and that's my dream. Like since young, that's the reason why we've always dreamed larger than life with no signal, and maybe taking a bigger bite. I don't know how to say that saying. We've bitten more than what we can chew, but that's just because we've like looked at American entertainment since we've been a kid and be like, why does the grading look so creamy? Why does it look so large? Why does it look so this? Just because they have made their culture, this is what the only culture, the biggest culture in the world, even though it might not be, but they made it like that's what became so impactful. And I feel like Black British deserves that. When you look about TV, from comedy to soap to whatever it is, like the impact that we've had is insane. And I just really want the world to see that, you know. That's what I dream of.
And some advice was people wanted to
And
set up
some
community
advice,
broadcasts.
you need like-minded people. You actually, like, it's so crazy to say that the money will come, but the money will actually come in it. If you actually spend more time looking for the money, you're gonna spend less time creating. You know, even when I'm in like a recording studio, like I always tell artists that I'm working with, like when it comes to producing anything, I'd be like, please do not bring your manager. Please do not bring your whatever it is yours. Don't bring any of those people. I don't want to talk about no business. I want to create, because from what we create is what's going to fund everything. You can't get funding and then create rubbish, because at the end of the day, like there was a time in life where I used to say, yeah, man, like Black people deserve like mediocrity as well, like in the same way our counterparts get that privilege. Cool. But at the same time, me personally, I want to achieve greatness, and I want us to always want to achieve greatness, not because we have to be better than our counterpart, just because that should be the bar. Greatness should be the bar, because everyone before has set a good standard of greatness. So when you come, make sure you have a good, whatever you're doing, make sure it's the best to its quality. And that doesn't mean it has to sound great. I'm just talking about the idea that whatever it is, like whatever you're doing, as G-Man said, they recorded the advert of a tape recorder with a small mic, but the advert sounded like it was larger than life. Do you know? It sounded like raw. Yeah, I want to be where he's telling me to be, because this sounds crazy. Not because it sounded like it was recorded on the best microphone that they had back then. So it's just make sure that whatever you're doing is like such a good idea and the creative is amazing. So when the money does come, all it's going to do is enhance it. Because if you have something that's pants and the money comes, then that's when you start seeing a lot of mediocrity. You start seeing a lot of artists in the charts you don't like. You start seeing a lot of content you don't like, because why? It wasn't even good in the first place, and now they just got money, and it's going to be all over your face. So just make sure whatever you have is so good. You have like-minded people that have the same messaging, that when you're not going to be in the room, they're also going to say the same stuff you're going to say, and you just have the same messaging out to people, and then bam, like, and it doesn't have to be, as I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be the typical, like what we see in Black entertainment in Britain. It doesn't have to be the typical things. I feel like whatever idea you have, it can be something very niche, but there's always a community for it, you know? And one thing that did help us when it comes to like money as well was government funding. There's a lot of government funded things, and we learned the hard way. We was doing applications by ourselves, thinking it's just easy to do applications, to then find out you can actually get people to do applications and they will just take a little bit of the funding. Some people do it for free, but there's also routes like that if you genuinely feel like you need some money off the start. But yeah, man, like have a good idea, have good people around you that are willing to push that idea for you. And then, yeah, if it's good enough, it will stick.
Amazing. Thank you, David. Yaa, you want to chime in, please?
Yeah, my dream. So I actually want to share a meme, which I feel like
Please share the meme.
My dream. Well, I don't know if it can be seen. Can you see?
Yeah, we can see it. It's hilarious. Yeah, I know that meme.
Yeah, so I made this meme like about three years ago, when I was at the time that I was running Decolonize the Art World, which was pretty much like art history memes. And I feel like it speaks to what my dream is, which is really that others have the headspace to dream. I dreamed that, the rent controls are actually passed, and universal basic income becomes a thing, and that we do start reinvesting in social housing, and that these leads to the kind of work that we've been talking about tonight. It makes it easier because people's headspace is not going to surviving in this UK, which is incredibly hard, given all the barriers. And then my second, in terms of like advice on running like a community platform, two things came to mind. And the first would be, there's this like, I guess, principle by Adrienne Marie Brown that I find like really helpful just generally when doing work, and which is move at the speed of trust. And I find that like really helpful, especially with working with people in terms of prioritizing the relationships, especially with scale, it can this big thing to do, or success is always like, how big can you go, as opposed to like how sustainable is this with the people that you are like working with, and how like, and I guess that relates to the question or the conversation that was happening in the chat in terms of like community versus like audience, and a lot of that I feel like is the trust and the relationship building. And the second piece of advice I would say would be like that it's okay to lead. I'm someone who, and like we've spoken about this, like really care about co-design, collaboration, just the co. But in that, I feel like you can sometimes, not give direction or kind of use that to fall behind. It's also a bit less scary when something is being done collectively, as opposed to, you are. So just remembering that it's okay to like curate or guide something, especially as it's being built, while still like inviting other people in.
This to everyone all day. I mean, this has been so beautiful. Kind of lost for words, which is rare. No, it is rare. It's not rare. I get lost for words all the time. There's so many things that are going through my mind right now. They're all coming at me at once, and it's a shame that we have to now end this. But it's like I feel, whichever way you can support the speakers, whichever way you can connect and continue these dialogues, please do. Yeah, I'm going to check with Grace, or who do I need to check in that we are now time to wrap up? Do Maya wrap it up, or do I wrap it up?
I'll wrap it up. Honestly, thank you so much, Daniel. This has been incredible, and yeah, just what a beautiful lineage of work to pay homage to in one call. Yeah, it's been beautiful. So thank you so much to all of you for being with us today. This is the first event of a whole lab, so if you've enjoyed today, then please come in and join us for some of the other events. We've got our other fellow Adéọlá, who's exploring frequencies in really different capacities, but in just as rich and dynamic ways. Please, we'll pop a link in the chat to those, so yeah, please come and join us. We've got some beautiful connections happening in the chat. Leave your @, stay in touch with us. And yeah, we hope that we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for joining.